What do you think is going to happen to Pakistan if Benazir Bhutto does come into power and the Pakistan People's Party is elected in the January elections?
Well, as a citizen, rather than a niece, as a citizen of Pakistan, I'm incredibly worried at what her return means for this country. Her legacy as a two-time prime minister is really a legacy of gross corruption. She's estimated to have stolen $1.5 to $3 billion from the Pakistani treasury.
Do you have proof, Fatma, of her corruption and of her involvement in the allegations that you put forward?
Well, absolutely, there's proof. If you look at the Cotecna corruption case, for example, the Swiss government pursued it, and they convicted her in 2003 for receiving $11 million in kickbacks in the Cotecna and SGS corruption case. That's a conviction in the foreign courts. There's a case against her and her husband in England over property. She's been implicated in the oil for food scandal, for bribing Saddam Hussein's regime with a kickback of $2 million to secure $100 million worth of oil contracts from Iraq. There's proof. I mean, this is proof that comes from the United Nations, from an independent inquiry.
As Benazir Bhutto's niece, what kind of relationship do you have with her?
I don't have any relationship with her. No contact whatsoever.
And why is that so?
My father, who is an elected member of parliament, and Benazir Bhutto's younger brother, was assassinated by her police during her last government. And she played a very active role in the cover-up.
You were home that night?
Yes. We were all inside and we were waiting for my father to return. He had gone to a public meeting in the suburbs of Karachi. And we were expecting him back any minute when we heard the first shot. What happened is that as he entered the road leading up to our house, the roads had been cordoned off. We live near several embassies. All the guards of the embassies had been told to retreat within their premises. All these street lights had been turned off on this main road. And there were 70 to 100 policemen at the scene, including some in sniper positions in these trees.
So literally right outside your house?
Literally just meters away from our house. And as my father pulled up around there, right actually opposite the police house, he exited the car to see what the problem was. And as he exited, one of the officers was charged with identifying him. When they identified that it was Murtaza Bhutto, he gave a one-shot signal to fire. And then there was a barrage of bullets, which we heard inside. My father was shot several times, but he would have survived except for the last shot, which was fired at point-blank range, execution style, into his neck. Him and another one of his companions, Ashik Jatawi, were both shot at point-blank range. And then my father and the 6 men that were accompanying him were left to bleed on the streets for about 45 minutes. They were not moved to medical facilities. They were not treated for their injuries. Once they were moved, much later, after they had bled really quite close to death, they were all taken to separate locations, but none to hospitals in Karachi known for dealing with gunshot wounds or for being emergency hospitals.
When did you find out that your father had been shot?
About an hour later. About an hour later, we found out that he had been shot, but we had no understanding of how serious it was.
And how old were you when your father was killed?
I was 14. I was 14 years old.
And what has come of the investigation? And why is it that you blame Benazir Bhutto as being complicit in the murder?
Forensically, the tribunal ruled it was a premeditated assassination. Secondly, they ruled that the police used an excess amount of force and that they left those men to bleed when they could have treated them for their wounds. And most importantly, the tribunal, and this is a tribunal set up by Benazir Bhutto, ruled that the assassination would not have happened without approval from the highest level of government. Now, what's higher than the Prime Minister's office?